Alright, welcome to the part 2. My name is Somil Shah, and in this video we are continuing what we did in part 1. So in the part 1 I showed you about logistic regression, scikit-learn using Python and pandas modules. So I showed you the easy way. This is very easy. I highly recommend you not to use this way. If you want to be a good programmer, you have to learn the object oriented way. I hope this example was clear. Just repeating step what we did quickly in the last video. Step 1, we read the dataset, right? Step 2, we printed the dataset. Step 3, we describe the dataset. We do df.describe and df.info, and we see if there is any null values. Step 2, we create the x data, y data. Once done that, we do train test split, right? Then we create a logistic regression. We do model.fit, model.predict, and the confusion matrix, and the classification report, right? So that's easy. You did great job. So first of all, clap for yourself. Congratulations on part 1, doing great job. Now moving to part 2, this won't be easy. It would be a complete object oriented code, so you have to pay a lot of attention and you have to try to understand each and everything step by step. So let's get started. So this is part 2, right? So object, oops, or I can say OOB. So this is the way I say it. So part 2 would be oops, Pythonic code. So that's object oriented code. So it's gonna be a little complicated for those people who don't know object oriented programming. I highly recommend to watch videos and get a basic idea of it, because I won't be covering that, because then the video would be too long. So I can create tutorials for you, but this one would be a complete object oriented. We would be completely leveraging the Python power today. So let's get started. So first of all, a good programmer, while importing library, we should do try, right? So this is how any good programmer does. So I'm gonna copy all the library that we just used last time. So, and make sure to indent that properly. One indent is pretty good. So a good programmer will also give comments, right? So tap to autocomplete, and if these modules are not there, we would like to say some modules missing, and if everything works correctly, we want to get a message. So a good programmer will say, hey, all modules loaded, right? So that's the first step. You should give comments, right? So that's essentially, I believe it's a good way to a good practice. Now let's define our neural networks, an object oriented approach. So I'm going to say class and then this will derive from object class, right? So ob object. All right, and don't forget the colon. We're gonna give the constructor, right? So guys, this is the thing. If you understand this code, all the other 9 lectures of my scikit-learn would be a piece of cake for you, because I'm gonna follow the same template. So make sure to understand this properly. So I have a simple neural network. Make sure to give one space. You know, this is a good page style coding. So all right, so the first thing that we need to do is this is how my skeleton of my code will look like. So I'm gonna say pre-process, which will do the pre-process, right? And of course it should have a self, right? I'm gonna convert this into I'm gonna decorate this with the property decorator, essentially, so I can access this as a attribute and not a method. And then we need a function to create a model. So this is the function which will do that. Essentially, this is also I want as a property decorator, right? So I'm gonna say property. Similarly, just gonna copy paste, and I need to, as you expected, if you have guessed it correctly, I need a function which will do the training and which will do the test. So I'm gonna say train. Again, it's gonna be property decorator, because I want to access this as a method and not as an attribute. I have created videos on this, so make sure to watch it if you don't understand what is property decorator. All right, so once we have the skeleton of the skeleton ready, right? And the last thing that we need to do is basically define the download report, right? So define right? So we are gonna do pass for now because we're gonna fill something inside. And this also I wanna access as a decorator, so I mean as an attribute, so gonna decorate it. And at the last I want to say plot, so whenever I call this function, right, so we want to truly leverage object oriented programming, right? So I want to say pass for that. Let's give this as well as a property decorator. So our basic skeleton is ready. Now whatever we did in the last lecture, we are just gonna copy paste code, right? So we need to do a pre-processing of the data. So essentially, you know, we selected the number of rows and columns, right? So now it was just gonna be a copy paste, right? So please watch my part 1. The links are there in the description section below, right? So essentially this is what we did, right? So revising your concepts and memory, guys. We select the X data. These are the columns that I want. Y data, this is what we are trying to predict. We do the train test split in the last lecture. Then we return the train test split. Now this is in order to completely leverage the power of Python and object-oriented programming. I'm gonna call this method, attribute inside the constructor. So this is how we are leveraging the maximum potential of Python. So wanna say that. So let me just do that. So I'm gonna use self so that I can access this inside anywhere inside the class. So this is how it looks like. So see, I'm accessing as an attribute. This is a method. Now this is a attribute. Remember this, just a small tip, right? So this is how we are leveraging. We are calling this function default constructor in this. So whenever we create the object, by default this will prepare the data set, and we can use it anywhere in the data set later on with the self keyword. So we create a model, right? So essentially now we need to create a model. Remember in my last class I showed you, just reviving your memory a little quick. So if you remember, we created a model, right? Model logistic regression. We said max iter 150. So we have to do the same thing, but now in an object-oriented approach. So inside this, we will say this. I hope this makes sense. It's pretty easy. The same thing that I just did, right? So just returning the model object, right? Once that is done, we also want to call this one because inside the constructor. The reason, again, I'm gonna explain you why. It's gonna be pretty beneficial why we will do that. So I'm gonna call that as well inside the default constructor. Now we have the train. So remember what we did up. So we did the train test split and we just say model.fit x train y train. Now we gotta do that, but now instead of that we're gonna say self, right? So I hope this makes sense. So just gotta copy a piece of code. All right, so all right, so hopefully this makes sense because we are already calling this object inside the default constructor. So we have this train test split already done. We don't need to call that attribute, right? So hopefully that makes sense for people who knows object oriented. For the people who are beginner, I know it's kind of difficult, but try to follow with me. And if you have any questions, post them in the comment section, right? So for the test section, what I will do is now essentially the same thing, right? Just giving comments, you know, and every good programmer should do that. So I'm gonna say self.model, you know. Now that's why I was calling it inside the default constructor. Here you can see, so I can access this attribute anywhere in the function. I don't need to call this attribute pre-process. So it's a pre-process or create model. Automatically it's done for me, right? So I can just access it. So here you see, then we are just getting the parameters. I mean the parameters from the prediction, right? And at the end we just need to download the matrix, the confusion matrix that we just did. So essentially I'm gonna paste the code off right there. So report, classification report, we gave the y test and pred. We did this in the last class, right? Similarly for the confusion matrix, and I'm just printing it, everything. So now if I bring all the code together, and hopefully if this should make sense, because I have gone through this like step by step for you guys. So hopefully that makes sense. So once that is done, you wanna just to run this machine learning model. It's just a few lines of code. What we want to do is basically do this, right? So wanna run the class first. So it's gonna take time, remember, because it's gonna try to fit all the data. So here you can see 30. So I'm gonna run this one. Alright, so we have the confusion matrix. We have this small issue known as result because I'm crazy and stupid, because I said report and I'm saying results. Of course I'm gonna get error, right? So here we have 91% accuracy, and here is a confusion matrix. So it looks like it predicted 24 incorrectly, and here 14 of them out of 192. But that's fine. 91 is pretty good. So this is part 2 of machine learning with scikit. So we learned about logistic regression. In the part 3 we will learn about linear regression. We will continue the object oriented code. So please make sure you understand this. If you don't understand this, the following lectures would be a little difficult for you to understand. So I highly recommend you to type the code, practice it, and then it should be a piece of cake. As usual, thank you for watching. Thank you for love, support. This is your developer Shah, and have questions, you can post them in the comment section, and I would be very happy to assist you all with all your questions and queries. So once again, thank you for watching, and I would like to conclude my video right here. This is the part 2 of the video. See you guys in the part 3.